this diamond is, just very, very simply, you'll see that there's 4 quadrants here. D starting in the upper right-hand corner, going clockwise around to I in the lower right, over to S, the green in the left, and then finishing up to C up here in the upper left corner. The quadrants are really very simple intersections of the two axes, the X and Y axis, where if you look at yourself at the top of that axis, the C and D kinds of styles, they're very, very focused on facts. And I look at this from how you make decisions or how you make a judgment. If you're at the top of this line, this vertical axis here, you are judging or making decisions based upon facts and data. They're kind of a hardcore, this is the way I feel about it, this is the way it shows, this is what I read, this is the information I have. I don't need a lot of support or collaboration to do this. I just know it because I've studied it and I believe it. If you look at the bottom part of that, the other extreme of this, it's the people side. These are people who very, very strongly rely and value collaboration and contribution from others in making a decision. So they want to know, let's group agreement here. Let's get some consensus here. Let's talk about what it means to the group. So that is the difference between being at the top, which puts you in the upper 2 quadrants, and the bottom of the y-axis here is how you process information and what you need to make decisions to move to a next step on something. The x-axis really is a combination of 2 things. It's how you express that. So on the right side is an expressive, what I might call extroverted kind of a approach. And on the left side of that axis is the pensive, the one that you think about it. You process a little bit. You aim before you shoot, as opposed to you're ready, fire, aim here in the typical expressive side of things. So you're more spontaneous is a way to look at it. Here you're more thinking, analytical, if you're on this side. Now, if you look at the intersections of what those 2 axes are, you get some very interesting, very clear characteristics of people and their communication styles. So I'm going to give you a little video here, and you're going to have to bear with me for just a second because we have to change modes here to jump to, thanks to YouTube, we can't get audio through YouTube, through PowerPoint very easily. So I have to jump out of here, stop my share, go to another, I got to get my screen here and share this one to, excuse me, I got to read it here. Well, I'll just have to create another screen here. Let me just pull up a screen. Jumping.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Now I'm gonna start the audio. If you can't hear
Okay, so we've established that everyone is different, right?
Yeah, no, this is good. This is good. There's no lag.
But here's the cool thing. They are predictably different. We all are. And because of that, we can actually predict how people will act or react in a given situation. Our world is made up of 4 types of people. There's dominant, or the D style, influencing, which is the I style, steady, or the S style, and compliant, the C style. Generally speaking, those are the personality types of the people you interact with every day. And I'll let you in on a little secret. You're one of them. Let's take a look. We've all been waiting on an elevator and seen the girl who presses the button, steps back and looks at the button again, then presses it again, and again, and again. Yeah, that's a D style. She has places to go and people to see. She's probably always in a hurry, so then she'll tap and hold the button, frustrated, thinking she can actually make it move faster. D styles are dominant, direct, and results-driven people who want to control their environment and then do something to make a difference in their world. Now, let's take a look at the I style. She is Talky Talkerton. Once the doors open to the elevator, she's the one who turns around and starts talking to nobody in particular about pretty much anything. She's an influencer. When when the elevator stops, she's the jokester who quips, "Third floor, lingerie, enjoy your day." Now, not all I styles are cheesy people who tell mom jokes all the time, but you see what I mean. Eyes draw energy from people and love to engage. Now, here comes little Miss C style. She's the quiet one. She's kind of off to the side, standing in the front of the elevator, looking at the plaque that reads, "Maximum weight, 2,500 pounds." She's calculating body weight. Uh-oh. If one more person gets on, we're gonna go down. She's on a schedule, but she's allowed herself plenty of time. She's compliant, she knows the rules, obeys the rules, and wants everyone else to do the same. Look at her. How cute. Enter the S personality. She's stable, steady, and keenly aware of her surroundings. She wants everyone to be happy, and she thinks it's her job to make it so. She's the one holding the elevator door open to make sure everyone who wants to get on can do so at their leisure. Meanwhile, Miss D's in the back huffing and puffing about needing to get to her meeting. The S will even take the stairs if there's not enough room for Miss I, who keeps everyone waiting while she finishes her mocha latte frappuccino thing. Harmony and steadiness are a big deal to the S. As a leader, it's important to know these DISC styles so you can begin to better understand the people around you. It's also important to understand that we are all a blend of these styles. Sure, we can adapt those blends based on our environment or when a specific situation calls for one style over the other. But more often than not, we've all got to accept our DISC and learn to live, work, and play and accept these basic truths. So there you have it. We're all different, but we are predictably different.
Yeah, all right, cool.
So I was telling this joke, and my grandma was like, "Pud, that's so funny." And I was like, "Nobody's called me Pud since I was in the 7th grade, Grandma." Like, shut up.
Hey, Chris, that was really great. And what you guys did this time so that there was no lag? I guess you're muted.
What if people had their needs written all over them? If you knew that this person...
You guys are muted, Chris. I guess it's just you and I, Tan.
Okay.
No, I meant that was unmuted.
Sorry about that. He muted that while he did his presentation. So sorry about that, Tan. Part of the stop share and the reshare was to get him to a browser as opposed to trying to run it through Beautiful or through PowerPoint. So that's one of the tricks we used at eBay.
More satisfied. All you would need is a tool to help you understand
No, this is really
where
good.
people
There
are
was no
coming
lag,
from.
you know. That's good to know. You
This
can do this.
is DISC.
I got something running in the background here, so I got to stop
Go
it.
and kill the window. You said you had another one. Are you good?
Kill that window.
Okay.
Go back and share this screen again, and we should be in good shape here. So.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is the dish style. Any immediate comment? I'm going to go through a couple of examples here that just kind of demonstrate or kind of give you a sense of a checklist or kind of characteristics and traits you should look at. I'm going to start with that D style. Any comments in general? Because this goes straight to Jerome's point right before we took our break, is there are styles that have to be layered into the communication process as well. And I can use the comparison in a D-style world. I'm going to put my stuff on, put my presentation on the D-style here. Can you see my screen, the behavioral style, D-style? Good. So what we saw here in the D, what little Miss D was talking about was typically the D style is you look at them, they're very extroverted, so they're expressive, but they're very fact to the point because they're on the upper side of that y-axis as well. So they tend to be, I know what I'm talking about. I don't need a lot of words. Just get her done. I'm a decisive decision maker. Let's do it, and let's do it now. That's the kind of style that you'll see in the D style. Typically, that means that their characteristics are decisive. They're very strong-willed, very what I call demanding. You could say they're pretty competitive. They're entrepreneurial in nature. tend to be somewhat independent, self-centered, not necessarily in a negative way, but sometimes that comes across as very negative. You're too self-centered, you talk about yourself. But at the same time, they don't tend to talk a lot. So that's a good part of it. Under pressure, they even get a little bit more quiet, a little bit more reticent because they're trying to figure out, uh-oh, I'm supposed to make a decision here. Something's not going right. I've got to kind of close in my shell a little bit, make a decision, and move to the next step. And that period where they're kind of closed off, you might seem sort of an intense. I'm not just aware of what's going around because I'm so locked into trying to make sure I get this right and make the right course correction. What they like and what they fear the most is controls, and what they fear the most is loss of control. So they tend to be ones to be more sensitive to getting things done, making sure things are happening. They tend to work at a very high level of granularity. They don't get into detail, but that's kind of the characteristic you'll see of a D-style kind of person. The I-style coming down one rank, still on the extroverted side, that I-style person is going to be expressive, but they're they feed on people. They feed on the feedback they get from people, the association with people. They're very social in their nature. They tend to be sociable. They like being in crowds. They like interacting. They talk, sometimes too much. They're comfortable at communication. They're not afraid to open their opinions about things, to talk about anything and everything. Their motivational profile is pretty high. They're very enthusiastic. They're very outright, very forthcoming. They great energy and great leadership in terms of motivating people. They are great persuaders. They're great on the podium. You'll see people that are salespeople being a good I-style kind of a personality. Under pressure, they get very disorganized. Why would you think that would happen? They just assume that you got disagreement amongst the ranks. Why would they become disorganized?
They're not listening to anybody?
Well, they're trying to listen to everybody, actually, is what's happening. So what happens then? If you're listening to everybody and you want to make everybody happy, what happens?
You don't hear anybody and
You don't get anybody. You kind of go to the middle. Ever heard of the word politician? Now, some people in a political world will be very, very binary, very, very divisive. Other people will try to make everybody happy from a political standpoint. So you'll see people on the political spectrum take a very hard position because they're not going to listen but except to people within what they consider their circle of influence. Whereas others are trying to be everything to everybody, represent everybody in the district, everybody in the state, everybody in the nation, whatever it is. And they can, if you get that sense of disagreement, it could create a bit of anxiety, which results in sort of a disorganized approach to things, and communication being one of them. Their biggest fear, social rejection. Politicians are great examples of I-styles. Think of anybody else. Think of the entertainment world. What might be another I-style kind of a profile or a person?
Comedian.
Exactly. What's a comedian's biggest fear?
Rejection.
And how does rejection manifest itself in their world?
Yep.
Nobody laughs, right?
Yep, no joke.
Tell a joke and there's like a bunch of stone faces out there. So that's a perfect example of an I-style. Very, very seemingly strong personality. They're influential, they're persuasive, they're energetic, but underneath they can be very, very delicate in the sense that they have a fear of rejection, and they can get very disorganized if you see dissension in the ranks. Move over to what I call the S style. Is the sort of the stability. Still in play is that people factor. They're down at the lower left-hand quadrant, the S quadrant. They tend to want to be organized. They think a lot rather than open up and talk spontaneously. They're the thinkers, but they still relate well to people. So I put them in the category of the organizer. I live with an organizer. Anybody ever seen or live with a spouse or partner who likes to organize the spice shelf alphabetically? You've never seen that, right? Ever? Okay. And you don't know what an S style is. I live with that person. I have 4 pair of glasses because I put them down. My glasses, I'm reading all the time. I'll put them down and I can turn around 30 seconds later and they'll be gone because they'll be back where they're supposed to be, which is on the counter in the glasses holder. That's what you call a highly organized kind of a person. They have a plan. They stick to it. They don't like change. They like stability in the environment. If you ever listened to Blanchard's or read Blanchard's book called Who Moved My Cheese, it's written about S-style people. They just are very resistant to change, and they don't react well to it. They have to be convinced that it's good for the order, that there's an organized plan to make a change, and we follow it, we stick to it, we don't change it. You'll find people in the S-style world as being somewhat calm and steady until somebody comes along and asks them to do something different or to make a change that they don't expect. They're careful, they're patient, they're calm, steady, tend to be very group and people oriented. They love to listen. They are the greatest listeners in the world, and they would make a great interviewer and make a great business owner because they can ask questions and they will take the time to listen and process what you say. So that's a good attribute. They don't tend to be very, very what I call flamboyant or charismatic in the sense of a very, very life of the party kind of person. They're very modest, but they still relate strongly to people. They have a high trust factor with people they work for. The rapport is great. They are kind of like the I, though, in the sense they want to please everybody. And under that sort of umbrella, their fear, they want to make sure people are happy because they don't want to lose that sense of stability. So in the sense of trying to behave in a way everybody benefits and they influence and they all have consensus, they'll fear that same kind of loss of stability, loss of control that an S might feel, or excuse me, an I might feel. So those are the 4 styles. I'm going to go over those with you as I get them from SETI. Excuse me, I've just got to get the C style. The C style, back to my 3-quadrant process here. The 4th quadrant is the C style. These are the I call them nerds. I call them the detail guys. I call them the people that know everything down to the nth detail about a process or a system or some discipline. They're very precise. They savor rules and structure and process and diagnosis in a checklist way. Go through the let's just call it the process of restarting a server, for example. They follow the rules. They are very, very careful. They're very logical. They have a reason for everything. Why they do A, B, and C instead of C, A, and B. They have a very, very laid out way of thinking about things. In that formal discipline world of theirs, they tend to be very, very critical about people who don't do it their way. They tend to say, you don't do it the way it should be because I know this is the way it should be done. I've been doing it all my life. However, if you flip that around, they're going to be the first to criticize someone else for not doing it their way. So they don't want to be criticized for what they do because they know it's right. And so they can take it, but they can deliver criticism, but they are not real good at taking criticism. Their biggest fear is going to be the sort of things not coming together in a way they want to. It doesn't fit a system they can describe in a very logical way, like a flow chart. So when we talk about your style, this is the format that the extended disk report will come back to you, which I'll share with you later today. You'll see that we don't necessarily fit in just one spot in this spectrum of things. We all have all of these traits within our mind, but we have a home plate. Just like the baseball diamond, the disc diamond has a home plate. And there's places you can go that don't take a lot of energy, mental energy. You can move, up to, if you're in this particular case, sort of an S person, but very close to being a C. You can roam around. You can be a C. You can be very analytical and very detailed sometimes, or you can maybe be more people-oriented at other times, moving down downscale from that purple point, which is the epicenter of your style. Where it's white, you have difficulty getting there. It takes mental energy to go and be a very, let's say, go give a presentation to the board of directors. You're not that kind of person. You don't necessarily relate well to people. You're not extemporaneous. You're not spontaneous in your communication. So you may have a challenge trying to get the mental energy to get there, and that's where anxiety comes from. That's where that work stress emanates from, as you're playing outside your sort of your comfort zone, which is described by these shaded spots here. You'll see this on your charts, and I'll explain them to you one-on-one, or we'll go through them as a group, as whatever you want. What we're looking for here is where are you, so I know where to go if I'm talking to someone else. Like this GPS, or like, who was it? Who's the Yankee baseball coach?
Joe Torre?
No, the Yogi Berra.
Yogi Berra, okay.
Yogi Berra, my best source of famous quotes. And one of the quotes I like the best: if you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else. Has got a lot of meaning on when you apply it to this chart. If you don't know what your grounding is, you don't know if you're a C or an I, and you wonder why you're uncomfortable trying to be something else or being a style that's a little different than what yours is, it's usually because you've moved out of your home region, and it's making you a little nervous because that's not what you do. That's not what you do all the time. If you're trying to be work with a D, who I say is a person that thinks in PowerPoint bullet points, and you're a S who thinks in very structured word format. You've got paragraphs and sentences to describe things, and the D is, he wants a 3-word bullet point to describe your paragraph, and you try to read your paragraph to him, he's not going to listen very long. If you're a D trying to communicate to an S, they're going to want more detail, and you're going to be wanting to move to the next point. So this is where you got to think about slowing down or speeding up or adapting to the other person's style based on who they are. And so knowing what you are, what your style, your dominant style is, helps you at least position yourself as to where you need to go in order to communicate better with that kind of person. That's a technique. I'm not going to tell you other than just give you some quick ideas about listening to what they say, how they talk. If you talk to a D, it's about goals, net, revenue, bottom line. You'll see words like that. It's bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. They don't get into explanation of detail. They move point to point to point, get their message out, and they're done. They're ready to go do something else. And an I, they want to wrap a story around it. They want to talk about all the things they've done the day before, what a great weekend they had fishing and taking the kids out to the ball game, and then they'll get into business and talk about some of the things, and then they'll spend a lot of time talking about points that the D really wants to get out on the table and get over with and get done and go. The S differs from the I mainly because they think about people, organization, process a little bit. They don't like things disrupted. They don't like a plan broken at the last minute with a new direction or a new individual or a new objective. They want to be given a plan. They're great middle managers. They're great doers in the sense of you give them a plan and you stick with it, they'll get it done because that's the way they think, in a very organized fashion. The C is much of a loner. They kind of are self-directing, self-managing pretty well, but they have a process. So you need to make sure their process fits yours. And as you manage them, you need to make sure that they're executing the way you expect them to execute because they, given their own drive, given their own devices, they're going to go do something in a very systematic way, the way they think it should be done. They're the ones that will tell you, you may want to do it. And you use the concept of the verb do. A D says, just do it now. An I is going to say, let's go do it, but let's have fun doing it. Let's make a party out of it. An S says, let's do it as we agreed upon. Let's do it according to plan. And the C is going to say, let's do it right, or be prepared to do it over, because they're very precise. And if you miss something and didn't didn't come through in the final analysis, they're going to want to go do the whole thing over again. So that's just the kind of how you recognize the styles of other people. I would say the best way, the best key and cue you could use in talking to other people is just listen to them for the first 5 minutes of the conversation, and you'll be able to pick up pretty much where they are on this chart, whether they're a Trump or a Biden, whether they're a Robin Williams comedian, or whether they're a highly organized technician. Whatever that style is, by listening to them talk and how they ask questions, you'll be able to get very close to who they are. And then your challenge is how do I move into their style a little bit more? Maybe as a D, I need to be more patient in talking to an S. Maybe if I'm an S, I need to be more precise in talking to the D. So whoever your position is, you're in control. You need to make the adaptation, and it's up to you just to kind of listen to the style to make that determination. You can pretty well talk about where people are in their world in terms of their careers. This probably won't be a surprise to any of you. The D style is likely to show up as a salesperson, someone in a strong entrepreneurial role, having to deal with a lot of decisions in a very rapid fashion. Lawyers, attorneys, especially the criminal side of things, can be very forceful, very to the point. They sometimes come across as D styles. The I style, I think anything dealing with public, whether it's customer service, whether it's training, whether it's working in retail sales or sales in general, these are where you're going to find the I style kind of people. And you're going to find, if you want to be a comedian in your career, that's where you're going to find yourself too, because you're going to be very, very much an I style if you're in that entertainment segment. The S style is going to be great middle managers. They're going to be great in organized and process-driven, compliance-driven disciplines, such as human resources, such as in any kind of administrative process where there's rules and processes to be followed. They're great teachers. They're great working with financial numbers, great working with people. The C is going to be the discipline-oriented. The accountants, CPAs, doctors, architects, engineers, any place there's a discipline or a process, you're going to find a strong element of C style of communicating. And guess what? Your technicians that you're going to hire, I've done hundreds of discs on potential hires for technicians, and I bet you 85% of them are dominant Cs, because that's just that attracts that kind of a thinking person who likes detail, likes process, likes discipline, and is willing to take the time and effort to dig down into it and become that disciplined person themselves. So that's kind of an example of what you're going to find in that whole DISC process. The challenge here, figure out, know who you are, and then determine who it is you're talking to and adapt accordingly. That's the key message here. Any question?
So Jim, do you have on an average general population, is there a bell curve or something?
In what?
Like for the general population, is there a bell curve? Like, hey, 80% of the people are C style or D style.
Yeah, the D styles are. I'll find out the exact number. It's in the teens. I think it's. I'm saying 17% of the American population is D. About 23 is I. 22 or 24 is S, and the rest are C's. So it's somewhat balanced. C's tend to be, and S's tend to be sort of the low 20s. I is about a 28, as I said, and a D is in the teens. If you go to Italy, you're going to have a whole bunch of people in the I style. Very, very expressive, very people-oriented, big families, family affairs, celebrations, etc. I think it's like in the 30 plus points are I's, and you get into the Romanesque countries, the Mediterranean countries. Same with the Hispanic. You go to Eastern European, you're going to find a much higher percentage of D's. than you do anything else. They tend to be a very de-oriented society. So it varies, obviously, culture to culture, country to country. Any other question? Okay. Where do we want to be here? We got another presentation I got to load up real quick.
Sure, no problem. While you're doing that, making that transition.
Okay.
I saw a couple of forwarded emails to me where SETI asked for your disc evaluation. If you've given it to her, thank